Saturday, the last Saturday of April. I don't know what you. But I have preaching. It's gonna be great, man. And then you can give me the stats, right? Like, yeah, go ahead. Okay, you ready? Okay, go. Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Overall, has it got better? I mean, not that I'm there, but. Yeah. But it's not really that important. I mean, like if it's a big increase, of course. Like what? Like what? Is it more like more cars?
No, they're not. So there's more. The increase was
All of our elected officials have a copy. Okay. Oh, these are nice and clean ones.
Those are a combination of ones I ripped the page out of and freshly printed. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're up.
You're fighting them. That's what they look for. How are you?
You need anything else?
Oh, no, not yet. Okay, we're going to start the Special Finance and Purchasing Committee public hearing for fiscal year 2024-2025 Budget and Appropriations Ordinance. Today, Monday, March 25th, 2024. The public hearing regarding budget appropriation ordinance and revenue certification for the fiscal year, May 1, 2024 to April 30th, 2025. Can I get a roll call, please?
Alderman Newsom.
Present.
Alderman Bolton.
Present.
Alderman Hayes.
Present.
Alderman Florian. Alderman Guzman.
We have a quorum. Thank you. New business, A, public hearing regarding budget appropriation ordinance and revenue certification for the fiscal year May 1, 2024 to April 30th, 2025, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Schultz.
Is it? Okay. Okay, new fiscal year starts May 1 of 2024. We started the budget process with certain objectives in mind, given to us by Mayor Taylor. Some objectives remain constant from budget year to budget year. One, of course, is to be conservative in our revenue projections. Be prudent, be responsible, be accountable. We've asked all of our departments to justify all of their expenditure requests. Whatever they're asking for in their budget was justified, whether it be personnel or non-personnel expenses. And another item, another objective is to control the headcount, especially when 85% of the general fund is devoted to personnel salaries and benefits. it's important that we control the headcount. The other major objective is to create a financial plan that's sustainable. It's one thing to prepare a budget that's good and balanced for 1 year. But what we look for is a budget that can be balanced the following year and the next year or 4 years thereafter. We like to have in place a 5-year plan where possible. An objective is to continue to strengthen the city's individual fund balances, our net position across all of our funds, not only the general fund, but all of the funds. For risk management activities, our objective is to create and maintain a reserve fund, anywhere from $7.5 to $10 million in reserve. Achieve and maintain a $5 million reserve fund in our fixed asset replacement fund so that we can replace public works, vehicles and equipment, police, and fire. Create a sustainable 5-year general fund budget and create a funding mechanism for economic development. Align all of our department budgets to our strategic plan that we worked real hard on for 2 years, introduced it last year, and all of our departments set forth certain strategies, certain goals that coincide with the strategic plan and that coincide with our financial policies. Maximize funding for public safety, maximize funding for public works, minimize funding for administration and overhead. You'll see that of our total budget of $245 million, less than 5% is devoted to general administration and overhead charges. A large percentage is for public safety, a large percentage for public works, a large percentage on capital improvements. Take necessary actions to reduce the city's long-term debt obligations. We have debt obligations that may be in the form of general obligation bonds, that may be in the form of compensated absences, other post-employment benefits, but a major one is our unfunded liability in our police and fire pension funds. All of our department heads understand the structure of the budget, how it's structured by individual fund. Members of the public may not. So this is more for the public's benefit. But we have major funds. There's governmental funds. Governmental funds consist of 4 primary funds. The major one is the general fund, which is a major operating fund of the city. It houses the building department, central services, police, fire, public works, planning, economic development, building, code compliance. Special revenue funds, we have 24 special revenue funds. These are funds that are created for specific purposes. It generates certain tax dollars or grant dollars that are allocated for specific purposes and only for that purpose. We have 8 debt service funds. Those are for our general obligation bonds. 3 of those bonds are funded completely by home rule sales tax. 1 is funded entirely by the McGaw Park TIF District. And we have 2 major capital project funds, one for fixed asset replacements, the other one's for streets, highways, bridges, culverts. Proprietary funds, there's the enterprise funds. Those are the funds, the first step we treat as like a business activity. It accounts for revenues and expenditures much as we would a private enterprise, our water and sewer utility for one, and a parking system. It generates its own money, pays its own bills. Internal service funds are funds that are established to provide services to other operating departments of the city. One would be our employment benefit plan. It covers the health insurance benefits and life insurance benefits for active employees and retirees. The other one is our risk management for workers' compensation and general liability. And our fiduciary funds. It accounts for revenues and expenditures related to our police and firefighter pension funds.
Could you hold on 1 second? Can I get a motion to seat Alderman Guzman?
I motion.
Motion by Alderman Bolton, second by Alderman
Second.
Hayes.
In total, there may be 7 primary fund categories, but there's slightly a little over 50 individual funds that we budget for. So it's quite a complex, complicated process. It's like a jigsaw puzzle where the pieces are always moving, we put the pieces together in terms of revenues and expenditures. The governmental funds, we mentioned the general fund, you can see the operating departments, the special revenue funds, the capital project funds. Proprietary funds, internal service, you see that, and the funding sources that go along with it. Highlights of this year, we'll be completing this year within just a few short weeks. General fund revenues are once again projected to exceed our original budget, while our expenditures across all of our operating departments in general fund will complete the year under budget. That has been the hallmark the last 3 fiscal years. We've had a balanced budget. We've built up healthy reserves in the general fund because of that. This year we hired 3 new firefighters through a SAFER grant. We hired 5 new police officers. We hired 3 police social workers through a co-responder grant. And I don't know what's going on here. This year we retired $5.6 million in GO debt. It started the year at $88 million. It'll end this year at $82 million. It'll end next year at $77 million. Additional 5.1 will be retired in fiscal year 25. Water and sewer will finish the year under $30 million in revenue debt. 1.4 million was retired this year, another 1.5 million next year. Our major taxes are projected to exceed our record fiscal year 23 year. Fiscal year 24 is just as strong as the prior year. We completed the animal welfare facility. That was completed, and I think it'll be an opening sometime in April. We've made significant improvements to the municipal beach and our pathways. Our stabilization fund that was established several years ago, it was established to maintain 1 month's reserve of general fund appropriations. So if you have a $100 million general fund appropriation, the idea was to maintain $8 million in reserve, or 1 month's worth, 8%. We are on path to continue to increase that balance in that fund to a little over 9% of the balance, a little over $1.1 million more than targeted. Our annual budget for the year received the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award from the Government Finance Officers Association. And we have positive fund balances across all of our funds, with the exception of the Risk Management Fund that takes into consideration claims for prior claim liabilities. That shows up as, it puts that fund in a deficit, 1 out of 50. In terms of new personnel additions in fiscal year 25, we'll hire another 2 police officers to bring the police complement to 165 sworn officers. That's the highest number I can remember. 5 additional dispatchers. That'll help significantly reduce the overtime and the workload of our telecommunicators. An additional IT technician. Additional support for the new animal shelter with a director, with an animal warden. 2 new clerical techs. 1 in public relations and marketing, 1 in public works administration. And 1 additional employee for public works / sewer division, for a GIS analyst, a construction manager to help us do our inspections after, rather than using outside engineering firms to do our inspections, we feel we can do the job with our own personnel at a significant savings. Certain departments were realigned. We moved the animal shelter from the police department and put it into essential services. We moved communications out of the police department and put all the dispatchers in the 911 center. Budget in brief. Actual revenues budgeted at $238.4 million. We'll add to that unassigned reserves. We have unassigned reserves now about $94 million across our funds. We'll draw upon those reserve funds that have been built up over the years Add that to our revenues, you get a total of $245,015,900, exactly balanced with expenditures. The general fund is once again structurally balanced. That is, general fund revenues are equal to or greater than general fund expenditures, to the tune of $2.9 million surplus in fiscal year 25. We will take that surplus and transfer it to other departments. $1 million will go for streets improvements for the following year. $500,000 will go into the fixed asset replacement fund. $300,000 will go into the fire service training and apparatus fund. And $1.1 million is needed to be transferred to the new 911 center. We transferred all of the cost of the 911 center from central services to the 911 center. So along with that will go our telecommunications tax and a significant amount of the surplus in the general fund to fund that entire operation. Zero property tax increase over the prior year. There's been no property tax increase over the last 3 years. We will have capital improvements totaling $39.4 million. These are projects that are ready to go, shovel in the ground, so they say. We've done the first and second phases of engineering for these projects. The projects are ready to hit the ground. Bridges, culverts, streets, sidewalks, lead line replacements. $3.7 million for replacement of fixed assets, vehicles, equipment. $600,000 for facility improvements in public works, police, and fire. $500,000 will go towards a commercial downtown facade improvement program. Of the $39.4 million for capital projects, streets and highways, $13.3 million on streets alone in Waukegan this year. $2.6 million for sidewalks. We initially had $1.6 million budgeted. The mayor asked for an additional $1 million to correct some of our sidewalks in our neighborhoods. Culverts, $4.6 million. Bridges, $3.1 million. LEs, $800,000. Water and sewer plant and infrastructure, $5.6 million. We have the Market Street brownfield remediation, $480,000. $400,000 from a US EPA grant. Lead line service replacement, $2.6 million. We will spend on replacing lead lines, service lines. The solder improvement program we talked about. Engineering services for future projects, for design and construction, $3.9 million. The other highlight of the year, we just received notification this morning, in fact, the city's EAV, that is the value of our property in Waukegan, has gone up for the 8th consecutive year. It went up 4.9%. We had started our budget with a projection that we projected it would increase between 5 and 7.5%. It's at right around at the 5% mark. You can see what happened for 2010 all the way through 2015. 6 straight years of a declining tax base. The market was hit tremendously hard in 2010. You all remember that. You know what happened to your property values in those years. Finally, in the last 8 years, it has increased. The value of our property has increased every year for the last 8 years. We're now finally reached a point in 2025 where our total market value of our property is equal to the high point of 2010. It took all this time to catch up, but we've now caught up. We always wonder, where does the money come from? We're talking about a $238 million budget in terms of revenues. 50% of the revenue comes from taxes, whether it be property taxes, sales taxes, income taxes, replacement taxes. That's a major source. Water and sewer charges, user charges, basically. Interest income, 14 million of that 18 million will be achieved in our pension funds. There where you have over $250 million to invest, we expect $14 million in investment earnings. The other $4 million is invested in the other city funds $1.8 million of that in the general fund alone. 4 years ago, general fund was getting $5,000 to $10,000 in interest earnings. We're now at the point where we've built up that reserve in our general fund. We're investing it at over 5%. And we're achieving $1.8 million in investment earnings. Premiums and pension contributions, 15% of the total. Permits, licenses, fees, 18 million or 7%. Intergovernmental revenues, that's revenues that we receive from other government sources, whether it's the federal government, the state government, private foundations, the county, 17.2 million, 7%. All others, a smaller amount of 5% of the budget. You can see tax collections at 50%. This simply summarizes the primary revenue sources. Compared to the prior year and the year prior to that, you can see taxes have always been around the 50% to a little higher of total revenue, 50.04% in '25. Pensions have been, permits have ordinarily been around 3.5%. We budgeted over 6.5% last year because we assumed that the first phase of the permanent casino would be drawing a permit last year, but that's been delayed for another year. So we brought down that permit estimate to the 3.5 level, 3.4. Licenses, fees, franchises, you can see those revenue sources. $22 million additional we are projecting in revenues over the prior year, an increase of 10%. These are our taxes. You see the property taxes, $37 million. Over half of that goes through your police and fire pension fund. Another $6 million of that goes for refuse collection. Another $5 million goes to the library. Home rule sales tax and sales tax, going to hit the $26 million mark. We're setting a record for the last 3 years. Our sales continue to outpace inflation. Our increases in sales tax is more than just increases in inflation. It's not just the increased cost of goods and services. Because when you look at our revenue compared to inflation, our revenues have exceeded the rate of inflation over the last several years. So it's more than just inflation driving the revenue increases. It's a lot of our mom and pop shops working hard, doing well, wishing they could do better. Incremental property taxes, those are the increases that in the tax base in the TIF districts. Corporate replacement tax at $8 million. Utility taxes, you can see. But these are all the different tax sources that will give $119.3 million in total revenue. Intergovernmental revenue. Very little intergovernmental revenue goes in the general fund. We do not fund general operations depending on sources of funding from the federal or state government. We use intergovernmental revenues to fund capital projects, to fund projects other than what we're going to handle in the general fund. It's not going for operations. It's going for streets. It's going for lead line replacement. It's going for water and sewer improvements. You see where it comes from. The state highway maintenance. Our public works department maintains certain highways. We get reimbursed by the state for that maintenance. Department of Natural Resources, $150,000 will go for down at our beach to help our pathways, our walkways. The library gets a per capita grant and some other grants from the state. Service Transportation Block Grant for bridges, streets. The American Rescue Plan. We recognize that revenue when the expenditures are made. We received the money in prior years. It's part of that reserve that we're going to draw from. Although we got the money, we didn't recognize the revenue because you don't recognize the revenue until you spend it. We're going to draw upon that and spend $5.6 million from the American Rescue Plan. We need to allocate all the money and spend it by the end of 2025.
Could you hold on 1 second, Don? Can I get a motion to seat Alderman Florian?
I so move.
Seconded.
Motion by Alderman Bolton, second by Alderman Hayes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Just as we mentioned with the American Rescue Plan, the same holds true for the co-responder grant. We recognize that grant money, those funds, as the money is expended, as it's spent. So we're going to draw again from the balance in the co-responder grant. The $17.2 million, you can see in our total $238 million of revenue will come from intergovernmental sources. With less than $400,000 for the general fund. Very small percentage in the general fund. Citywide expenditures. This is the question we all ask. We ask it in our own home life. Where does the money go? When you're at home, you ask the same question. Where does it go? You know, you pay your mortgage, you pay your bill, you pay your utilities. We ask the same thing on a much larger scale for the city. It's a $245 million budget. Where does it go? General government. Less than 5% of that total budget is for general government. Principal and interest on our debt. That's a cost. We're going to have that. 4.6% of the budget, principal and interest, is going down. Water and sewer operations, $9 million. Capital projects, you can see that $39.4 million where the money's gone. 16% of total expenditures will be spent on capital improvements in fiscal year 25. Fixed asset replacements, that $3.7 million is only 1.5% of the total budget. Public works expenditures, 7%. Public safety, 42% of the total citywide budget is on public safety. 74% of the general fund budget is public safety. The priority in the general fund is public safety, public works. Maintain our streets, our alleys, our sidewalks, our infrastructure, maintain safety in the community. Culture and recreation, 2.5%. Library makes up a large portion of the culture and recreation, along with our beach. Refuse and environmental, that's environmental remediation for Yeoman Creek, and it's also our garbage collection, our refuse collection, 2.6%. So that's where your $245 million goes, these categories. We said we had 7 major funds of the city. The general fund, the general operating fund of the city, where you find the building department, central services, police, fire, public works, planning, zoning, economic development, is 41% of the total budget. It'll go up 4.7%, which when you consider health insurance alone goes up 9.5%. We have COLA increases for our employees. We're hiring a few more employees. A 4.7% increase total for general fund, we're very pleased with. It's well covered by projected revenues that are almost $3 million more than the increase in our expenditures. Special revenue funds have a large increase. Of the $26 million increase in the total budget, $20 million of that is in our special revenue funds. A big portion of that is motor fuel tax. Motor fuel tax is an $18 million reserve, unassigned. It's built up over the years from motor fuel taxes and the monthly transportation renewal tax. We're now going to spend a good portion of that money on our capital projects this year. We're also going to spend down the reserves in our co-responder grant and our American Rescue Plan. Those are special revenue funds. And all of our TIF districts are special revenue funds. Capital projects, pretty even in terms of what's being spent from those 2 funds, the fixed assets and the street fund. Debt service, you can see, went down by $640,000. Enterprise funds will show a slight decrease. Internal service funds will increase due to increased costs of insurance, workers' compensation on our liability insurance. Fiduciary funds, our pension costs. Those costs are set for us on an annual basis by an independent actuary. We levy what we are told to levy, In addition to that, we add in additional sums from video gaming tax. Expenditures by type. Of a $245 million budget, $120 million is personnel and benefits. We are a service provider. We don't make products. We're not a manufacturer. You would expect as a service provider, our primary cost is going to be personnel. Who delivers the services? People. Makes up 50%, almost 50, 49% of the total budget. Capital improvements, you can see, will make up 15% of the total. Contractual services, almost 30%. Yeah, simply by fund, you can see general fund is a large portion at 41%. Special revenue funds at 23%. By category, salary and benefits are the largest share, followed by our contractual services, followed by capital improvements. You have revenues, you have expenditures. Combined, revenues minus expenditures will create some kind of change, net change to your fund balance, to your net position. Either it's a positive or a negative. Expenditures of $245, revenues of $238. Net change of our reserves will be $6.6 million. That means we're going to draw upon unassigned reserve funds to cover that difference. The general fund will have a surplus, which we will transfer out to other funds, so there will be no net change. Our debt service funds, the amount of money that comes into the fund goes out for principal and interest. The addition is the interest earnings on our debt service reserve fund. Every time we close a bond issue, any money remaining in the fund goes into reserve. That money is being invested. We're expecting $125,000 in investment earnings in that fund. It'll stay in the reserve fund. We will use it in future years either to abate taxes or we'll use it for capital projects. Internal service funds, there should always be a wash. Revenues equal expenditures. Fiduciary funds should always show a large investment earning increase. The actuary assumes that it's going to be a 7.5% investment earnings. We don't use 7.5%. I've used 4.25%, 4.25%. But that'll generate $14.6 million over and above what those funds need to pay pension costs. Where we're going to draw our reserves from would be the special revenue funds, capital project funds, and enterprise funds. Does that mean those funds are going to be in the red? Of course not. Special revenue funds currently has a $48 million unassigned reserve fund. We're going to draw $9 million from that out of $49 million. Capital projects currently at $11 million sitting in the bank. We're going to draw out $6 million for projects this year. Enterprise funds, water and sewer fund, has $45 million in unassigned fund balance. We're going to reach into that for almost $9 million to fund additional water and sewer capital projects. So it looks like a deficit is not a deficit. It's a budget that is structurally balanced in 3 of the funds, or 4 funds are structurally balanced. The other 3 funds are balanced using unassigned reserves. We talked about the city's largest expense being personnel. The city has 527 employees. We are the 10th largest municipality in the state of Illinois. We have a budget of $245 million, a population of almost 90,000 by the census, 25.5 square miles. The size of our overall budget is also the 10th largest in the state. When you look at Naperville, Aurora, Joliet, Elgin, Peoria, Springfield, where we land in terms of budget, we're right in line with where we should be. In terms of personnel, we have far less number of personnel per capita than our contemporaries. Out of a $245 million budget, $120 million, or 49%, personnel salaries and benefits. You can see how the employees are spread out. 123 professional firefighters and medics, 165 sworn police officers, 56 civilian personnel in public safety. Public Works, 58, Water and Sewer, 40, Building, Planning, Community Development, 31, Central Services and all of administration, 54. The general fund, personnel costs in general fund is $100 million. 85% of the general fund budget is devoted to personnel costs and personnel benefits. So when you start talking about lowering the cost of central services, you're talking about getting rid of people. The only way you're really going to manage of decreasing the general fund budget is you're going to reduce services by reducing people. The stabilization fund we talked about, it was a fund that was created years ago when the city found itself in financial straits. It was so badly funded at one time when there was when our fund balance declined year after year after year in the general fund, that the city issued a working cash bond to bring in money to fund our operations and to keep a safety net in place. At that time, the city council, by ordinance, established a stabilization fund and said that we will maintain a reserve fund equal to 8% of our general fund operations, 1 month of operation. 1 month of reserve is not enough. In 40-some years of finance, my goal has always been 25%, nothing less than 25% balance, which is 3 months of operations. 3 months of operations plus another month in stabilization, you're talking 33%. Can we get to the 33% mark? The answer to that is yes, and we've done that over the last 4 years. General fund budget, you can see, had the excess revenue over expenditures of $3 million. You can see where it goes. I talked about how we're transferring it to other funds. Net change of the fund balance is actually $400,000 because we're going to take the investment earnings in the stabilization fund is actually counted by the auditors as part of the general fund. So that balance will increase by $400,000 for a $54.9 million general fund balance. Where does the general fund money come from? 77% of the general fund is funded by taxes. As we said, our sales tax, home rule sales tax, municipal retail and occupation tax, our income tax, replacement taxes, utility taxes, permits, licenses, fees make up, what is it, about $14 million there. Where does the money go? You can see 12% for some services, building, police and fire. You add those together, you're at about 74% of the general fund for police and fire. 74% there, another 10% for public works, 84 to 85% of general fund budget for public safety and public works, where we've always said was the priority of funding. Central services will see a slight increase of 3.5%. Building and code compliance, a slight reduction, pretty much the same budget. Fire department, police department, they're so heavy in personnel that when you have personnel increases, additional employees, and benefit increases, it'll drive up the cost of public safety. But a total of 4.7% in the general fund. And to be quite honest, we were happy with that. When we did the budget and we worked with our department heads, we went back to our department heads, asked them to justify their requests, to modify their requests, reduce their requests where possible, and we got special revenue funds. We don't need to go through all these. You'll see what they are. There's 24 of them. They're funds that are set up for very specific purposes. The library, the gaming tax fund, that's the casino money. This past year, we Convergence Strategy Group made it, they estimated what the casino would bring in for us this past year. They projected $3.9 million. They were within 5% of their projection. I found that to be astounding. For not having any experience whatsoever in Waukegan, to come within 5%. We have $3.6 million in the fund now. Next year, we have another full year's operation. We assume we're going to increase that by another $4.3 million in revenue from the casino. We budgeted $7.1 million in expenditures, although it's unassigned. Our city council has to meet as a body and determine how that revenue is going to be allocated. We'll make certain recommendations, but it's up to the council to decide how the money can best be used. Not only the casino money, but also the push tax money. You can see the library is a good portion of the budget. There's a refuse collection, $18 million budget, an increase of $12 million over the prior year. That's a big part of that $20 million increase we said in the in special revenue funds. A good portion of that comes from motor fuel tax. We're drawing upon reserves in that fund that are built up over a number of years and spending it on identified street projects and culverts and bridges. Capital project funds, you can see pretty much the net change is pretty much a wash compared to the prior year, 10.5 compared to 10.4. Debt service funds, we retired one of our bonds last year. It doesn't carry over to fiscal year 25, so debt service will decline. Enterprise funds, very healthy budget, but still a decrease over this year. But we're not spending $29 million this year. We had a lot of that invested in capital projects that are being carried over to the new year, which will be part of that $27 million. The parking system no longer has any revenue bonds outstanding, no leases outstanding, they've been paid off, so that budget has gone down. Internal service funds, insurance costs have gone up. Fiduciary funds, pension costs have gone up. Sustainability, can we sustain where we are today? And where are we going to be next year? If anybody says, well, how are we doing? Well, we're doing fine. What does that mean, we're doing fine? Or how are we next year and the year after? We're more concerned about where are we going to be 4 years from now, 5 years from now. We know we're going to get through this year. We're going to get through next year. We're going to get through the year after. No matter what kind of emergency falls upon us, we are set with our reserves to carry us through an emergency. That's the whole point of establishing a reserve fund and sticking to it. The whole idea was to build a financial foundation. And that was the mayor's #1 goal when we met for the first time in June of 21 when I came back. Our #1 goal was to build that fund balance, to build a reserve. She came in with a significant deficit, wanted the deficit improved upon, taken away, forgotten altogether. Have we done it? Well, look at the general fund. From 2018 to 2025, and look at the last 4 years. 50% fund balance, 54%. Our goal has been 25% in that fund, 33% if you count the 8% that's held in a stabilization fund. You can see where we are. The last 3 years in actual placement in 22, 23, and where we expect to end this year in 24, and what our budget calls for in 25. You can see the significant increase in our reserve fund to protect ourselves for emergencies, to fund future operations. Our fund balances, if you look, these are all positive fund balances in fiscal year 25. Homeworld sales tax, even though we transfer money out of there every year for streets and for debt service, we will still end this year with $3.3 million in our homeworld sales tax fund. American Rescue Plan, we're hoping to spend all of it before the end of the year, but if not, we'll have like a $500,000 balance to use in the following year, or we can identify a use for it next year and use it. The gaming tax fund, assuming we spend the $7.1 million that we budgeted, we'll still have a positive fund balance in that fund. And you can see all the way through these funds. Motor fuel tax, even though we're using a large portion of our fund balance, we'll still have an $8.6 million reserve in motor fuel tax. McGaw Park TIF is a very healthy TIF. It brings in $5 to $6 million a year in sales in increment. We use $3 to $4 million of that for debt service. The rest sits in the balance of the TIF district. Debt service funds will have the $125,000 balance we talked about. Enterprise funds will still have a very healthy fund balance. And this fund balance is more than just cash and investments. It's the assets that are in that fund. That's how you have to count enterprise funds. But in terms of cash, liquid assets is about $45 million. Add the assets on there, you're at 88. Internal service funds, that's a wash, year to year. Fiduciary funds, we expect to increase that balance. Capital projects, $13.4 million in streets. When has the city last had a $13.4 million street budget? I can tell you when. Never. Not unless they did a massive bond issue. And if it did, it didn't spend it all in 1 year. We are doing this program without a bond issue. There are no more general obligation bonds money left from prior years on streets. We're funding this with our reserve monies that we have available in our street fund, in our motor fuel tax fund, and certain grants that we've applied for and received. But $13.4 million. You should see a lot of construction work in your wards. And if not, get on the phone and ask Chris where the truck's at. Engineering services. These are future projects and ongoing projects. We need to continue the work of design for the construction purposes. Water and sewer projects. I don't know what some of these things are. Gas, chlorine, cylinder hoist. I'd ask you sedimentation. And some kind of filter and valves of lake intake pipe, spiral stairs, you know. Lewis Avenue pressure reducing valve, Lewis Avenue vault design, storm sewer improvements. Anyways, you've got, what, $5.7 million in water and sewer projects and infrastructure. Some will come from water and sewer sales, the fees that we collect on an annual basis. Some will we still have money from the 2020 water and sewer bonds. We'll be spending that in this current fiscal year. Culverts, almost $4.8 million. I was told we need only $4 million. We have almost $800,000 available that we can transfer maybe for streets, sidewalks, and it's some purpose that'll come during the year. Bridges, you can see the bridges we're going to do. Greenwood Avenue Bridge, and Market Street Bridge, Genesee Street Bridge, Belvedere Bridge, engineering and construction. Sidewalk improvements, $2.6 million. Beach improvements and site plans for Beach House. Our TIF 8, which is our downtown TIF, will fund improvements or repairs to the County and Clayton Street garage and a Sheridan Road feasibility study from our TIF district. These are the funding sources of $39.4 million. You can see none of that is from a bond issue. We are not proposing a bond issue for these projects. We're proposing to fund $39.4 million with money on hand, or money that's projected to be received during the year. ARPA funds, Rebuild Illinois money, Service Transportation Block Grants, Motor Fuel Tax, RTA, I think that's for a bus station. The general fund is going to support these projects. Property taxes, part of the levy this last year, part of the levy was for streets. We retired a bond issue. We took that money and devoted it to streets. Water and sewer sales, a bridge grant, a balance within capital project funds in the water and sewer. CDBG is lending assistance for $400,000. Lead line replacement, sidewalks. Our capital project fund, our street project fund has a fund balance. We'll be drawing upon that. TIF 8, $1.3 million. US EPA grant for the Market Street remediation. Those are the funding sources. Upgrading vehicles, equipment, and facilities. Doesn't look like much because I don't have a whole full list of all the equipment we're purchasing. You approved last fiscal, and this current fiscal year, replacing at the 170 or 200 police and fire radios. We'll be making a payment on those radios this year. Facility improvements. Maybe this building, fire station, public works facility. We have to maintain our assets. Our capital assets are important. You need to reinvest in our buildings. You can't defer these expenses year after year. Some of our buildings are crumbling. Some need major overhauls. Some need major repairs. We have 5 fire stations. All of them are in need of a certain amount of rehabilitation, repair work. We can't ignore these things. It's like not making improvements in your own home. The concept's the same, only the dollar amount is higher. But the concept's the same. Public Works equipment. They have a full list. And I know Chris will be going before the Public Works Committee and Chairman Turner to identify all the Public Works equipment. We put $750,000 in the budget for Public Works. We intend to put another $750,000 at a minimum next year, Public Works. We intend to do another $600,000 for police vehicles again next year. We are intending to replace 10 police squads this year. There's another $425,000 in the ARPA fund that we can spend on public safety equipment. We didn't identify use. It can be used for police cars. You can go for whatever public safety related item or any general government expenditures. We can keep that in mind as the year goes along. As the year goes along, things always come up that we hadn't planned on. We don't know. We don't have a crystal ball. We can't identify all the projects that'll come up, all the emergencies that may ensue. But we need to be conscious of the fact we budget for it. That middle picture there, that is at least that's the picture I have for that lightning loader. I think someone asked, I think Alderman Bolden, you might have asked what a lightning bolt, looks like. It's a claw, it picks up, it drops into a truck. 1-ton pickup truck, I know Public Works wants that. Public Works will make some improvements to the facility. We're going to refurbish a fire engine. That's not the engine, it's just a picture of a fire engine, but we're going to refurbish it. We have money in the budget for facility improvements to the fire stations. Long-term debt, and we're getting close to the end. My goal was to keep 63 slides down to 60 minutes, and we're going to do that. Long-term obligations. We can't ignore a long-term debt. It's not going to go away by itself. You can't wish it away. It's not going to dematerialize. It's not going to evaporate. We need to address it. Some have a schedule of their own. And we talk about general obligation bonds, revenue bonds, special assessments. If they're on a schedule, they'll be retired in due course through the whole budget process. These schedules were set up when the bonds were issued. You can sometimes refund these bonds, but that's only if they're callable. We have a bond that's going to be callable in the fall. We'll come back to the City Council sometime in the fall and look at refunding that bond issue. Rates are much better than when we issue the bond. We issue that debt. And there's a savings to be had. The real long-term debt that we need to address is our unfunded police and fire pension liability. That debt stands at about $267 million out of our total $451 million. We are less than 50% funded. It's more like 45% funded in our police and fire pension funds. We need to be 90% funded by the year 2040. We keep thinking we're on pace to get there, but we're going to have to put in more than just what the actuary tells us to. You do that now by putting in more than the minimum. You do it now by putting in your video gaming tax at 100%. We'll look at the gaming tax. We'll look at push tax. We'll talk to the council about that. You can see our government activity debt, all the different portions that make up that debt. Governmental activity debt is $408 million. The other $43 million is the revenue on the business types, on the water and sewer side. Percent funded. Oh, it doesn't matter if it's police or fire because they both look the same. I think this is police. Is it police or is it fire? It is police. You can see his funding level. It's embarrassing. We're 47% funded, and we're putting in half of our tax levy into those funds, and we can't improve upon it. Our investment earnings have been less than 7.5%, several years out of the last 6-7 years. We need to improve upon that. And I think now that they've consolidated those funds, we should see some growth in investment earnings. Oh, there we go. There's your fire. Same thing. Less than 47% in the latest audited year. 2020 was a disastrous year because you lost a ton of money in investments. The market value of our assets declined in 2020. It's a terrible year. We all know that. We're all trying to catch up. How many of us are where we today where we were 3 years ago? I'm still not at the same point. I'm still struggling to get back. That is your $245 million budget across 7 funds, 50 different fund categories. Any questions?
We're going to open it up for public comment, and that'll be
And
3
Sherry is
minutes.
sitting in the back for hard questions. I'll take the easy ones. Any comments?
Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Well, thank you all.
Oh, no,
Any- Nobody in the audience? Alderman Guzman?
okay, obviously, I mean, there's huge improvements on the budget year after year. I mean, overall, it's a great budget. Just a few questions. Okay, with this lead service line, with us budgeting, what is it, with the previous council budgeting, 3%, what was it, 6% increase, and then 3% would go to lead linings. With the federal government and the state passing down more lead lining money, so we're budgeting at $245 million, but actually we're getting back, I don't know, what's the cost of it? And then does that money go back into the general fund, or so our revenue increases when we get the money back
Which buddy is that?
for lead lining service?
Oh, no, that will not go back in general fund. It's not spent out of general fund. It will not go back into the general fund. It'll go
No.
back into capital project fund.
Exactly, the water and sewer projects.
Right.
Okay, so we projected 3% over year to a total of 15% over 5 years. With them opening up more money to lead line services, does that come back? Because I hear the budget, the money comes out, but then I don't hear it coming back in, and where does it go
Where
back?
would it come back from?
From the opening up of federal funds for the grants for the lead service lines.
Actually, there's less money available than there used to be. I was just in Washington to ask our legislators to put more money aside, because what they've done is they've put X amount of dollars that we're all competing for, but half of that money is actually what they call forgivable loans. But it's not totally forgivable. What it means is you fund it, and then a year later, they'll tell you if they'll forgive up to 50%. You may find that they only forgive 5%, and you're stuck with that for that loan. It is a lower percentage, but you are still taking that loan on. So one of the things that many municipalities have asked for is, one, there needs to be more funding for this, especially if they're looking at doing it, they're looking at shortening the period to 10 years. So for us, that might mean doing 1,200 homes a year. Right now, we've done about 400. So what that would mean is it's very hard to commit to a contractor that you're competing with all over with other communities that also want those lead lines done. There's a shortage of plumbers to do it. There's a shortage of engineering companies to do it. And you are competing with them when you don't know what your funding's going to be. So it's not just us that are having problems with that, but so far, everything we have done has been through grants. Those cost per home, it's $12,000 to $14,000 per household. In Waukegan, that's not an expense I can ask my homeowners to pay for. In other communities, they are just billing the homeowner directly because they know they can't get the funding to do the amount that they need to do. We will still pursue grants. 2024 was our best grant year that we've ever had. Literally, the staff knocked it out the park, and we will continue to do that. And I am working every day with legislators to make sure that we get the money that we need, because it's going to be an issue. Do I think that we'll get it to 10 years? I don't think any municipality right now is ready for 10 years.
So I understood that before that was the case, but I thought Congress and Senate were going to approve a more lenient.
They've talked about it, but it has not happened.
I see. Okay, that was my question.
We're at probably about a fifth of what people really, what the country needs to be funded at in order to make this work.
Because it was brought up in the State of the Union, the lead lining service.
It's been brought up, but like I said, the funding is not necessarily available. What they're calling out of the money that's available right now, 50% of it is through low-interest loans that may or may not be forgivable, up to 50%.
Thank you. But you guys, by the way, Mayor, you guys are really doing a great job. I mean, there's no doubt about this. I mean, nobody can deny the numbers. I mean, you could talk all you want. You could go wherever you want, but the numbers are there. 3-4 years ago, I mean, you were borrowing at horrendous amount of interest, and now you're actually paying for the stuff out of your pocket cash. I mean, there's no doubt about it. This administration has done a great job on that part.
What I will say is when I came into office, we were running with an $8.5 million deficit, over $90-some million in bonds, and I was within 7 months of having to do massive layoffs. We offered early retirement to people because that was our best source of being able to cut some of our expenditures. We were probably in worse shape than most people realized at that time, but you've seen balanced budgets before. That meant adding into the budget bonds that we needed to take out to balance our budget. There is nothing like that in these budgets that have been presented to you. So I feel really proud of the work that we've done to make this work. You know, there's a lot of talk about, oh, everybody's getting this. No, they're not. But like I said, it makes good chitter chatter, but it's not true. And I can explain those parts, but this is actually thanks to the team that we have here, especially the finance team and Don in particular. Honestly, they've done a phenomenal job making this work. And as Mr. Hayes knows, when we talk about having 1 or 3 months budget at hand, I will tell you our HOA has a 9-month budget on hand, and we think that's pretty thin. We have gotten into the habit in Waukegan of spending every dollar we have and having nothing to show for it. We need to be able to have money set aside so that what happened in 2007 into 2008, where suddenly we get a recession, and now we have nothing in reserve. We're doing massive layoffs. We can't do construction on roads. We can't do anything without bonding for 12 years. So that has to stop. We have to get to the point of understanding we need to have money in reserves because, you know, why we are good at putting a budget together, we are not psychics. We can't predict when the next recession will be here. So, thank you.
Alderman Bolton?
Yes, I understand you said there's what? How many employees? 527 that we've employed?
What was the question? How many employees what? 527,
527.
527 employees.
And then you also give a comparison with the 10th compared to other states with the least employees. Is that, did I hear you correctly?
I didn't hear that either.
She's asking, she said, we're compared to other municipalities, we're the 10th largest municipality.
With the 10th largest compared to,
Yeah, number of employees per capita were lower than the 9 cities that have a larger population than us. Yeah. Some have a much larger police force.
No more questions?
I have several questions, but I made an appointment with Don to meet him on Thursday, because it's gonna, I've marked up the whole book, and it's gonna take a long time. So rather than take everybody's time here, I made an appointment to do it so I can get all my questions answered.
All right, thank you.
likewise, me too. Yeah.
Thank you all.
All right. Ma-
I'll make one other quick comment that you heard us talk about having, in 21 when I came on, we had 142 officers that we call active and inactive. And what that means is we had a lot of workman's comp claims that we had officers that were out for up to 2.5 years. We don't work that way anymore. Now risk management takes people right away, gets them into physical therapy. We get you through the workman's comp process. So currently, I believe there's 161 officers. Is that correct, Chief Navarro? 163, okay, because I thought we just,
How many we have today?
Yeah.
Working? Yeah, so we're at 159.
159. We will be up to the 165. We were at 161. And
We're 163 for this fiscal year.
yeah, so we're bringing our numbers up. So, whenever you ask me day to day, that can change. So people can retire, things can change, but we've run within that balance so that we have definitely increased our officers. And remember, when we take on officers, it is a big expense, not just in terms of their salary, their medical, but then you're taking on the pension for a long, long time period.
Before you leave, Mayor, what about the firefighters? Because I know they were short, and they were asking for more firefighters, but I don't see anything on here. I see 2 police officers, 5 dispatchers, IT.
They just use the SAFER grant. So they have 3 right now, but they will, SAFER grant means that for 3 years, they're basically covered by a grant, but then we have to cover them after that. So that's where that comes in.
And then the 5 dispatchers for 911, that will, obviously that will reduce the multiple of overtime and stress on this department.
Right. So one of the things that we have decided to do was not join the consolidation. So we will do our own dispatch, and we will be working not only with the police but fire to make their dispatch better as well. But we feel we can do that better in-house than what we were getting our questions answered from the county in terms of being able, what exactly would that mean? For instance, we dispatch a lot of non-emergency calls that would not have been dispatched, maybe animal control. Those were all things that we couldn't get a cost on, and not typically things that other communities have that they would use dispatch for.
How about this administrative support in the animal shelter? We've never had one, so why are we adding one now?
Why are we adding what,
What is that?
an administrator?
Yes.
So animal control has always run under police, but I call them the stepchild that, they're out in their own building, which we all know was not in good shape at all. But we need to have somebody who's up on all of the agricultural laws so that if they came into our animal control, we could pull out all our records and say, this is when this animal came in, this is how long it's been here, we're abiding by our ordinances. We will be doing a computer software that a lot of, like the county uses, a program called Chameleon. We will be looking at doing that so that our officers, our animal control, actually will have tablets, just like our code enforcement does, that they will have a history on calls that have been made to that house. Right now, they go off of memory. So we will have a very structured, different-looking, animal control will not be under police. It will be its own freestanding, unit, which is different than it's been in the past, but something that we need to have. There will be other changes that we'll have to make adjustments for. As you've all heard, our insurance is going through the roof. We're even getting more quotes now that they're getting into things, that even the numbers of 40% that they gave us looks like it's going to be even higher than that. Our SRI, which you've all heard of, which is basically our deductible, used to be $250,000. It is going, we were initially told 1 million, and Bob, it's one, what is it?
It's 1 million currently, it's going to 2.5 million.
Yeah. So those are adjustments we'll need to make. Other adjustments that you'll see come up is that Governor Pritzker has cut the sales tax for groceries. So that means we lose about 1.25 in income for taxes on that. So I have a plan that we can make that up. I'm not going to expose that plan right now until I work it through legal. But it's a problem that all municipalities are having. And so it's not unique to Waukegan. It's just something that it's places that we lose income, places that the costs go through the roof, like I said, with insurance costs. That's not just a Waukegan problem. It is getting to the point that across the country, insurance companies don't want to insure law enforcement. So that's a big part of our costs, and you have to have insurance. You have to.
One question for Don, the push tax, okay, so it's starting to be implemented now. So, because I saw the numbers, I thought it was like 39,000, and then it's been a while since I've seen the number, and then it's going to like $200,000 with that push tax? Or you just don't know yet?
Hasn't been decided on whether we are going to even get it.
Oh, I thought we were there.
So what started with the push tax is the litigation process has started. So we are hoping within the next year here, working with our legal team, just like we bring in people who are not complying with their liquor licenses, we will bring them in as well and do adjudication hearings just like we've done here. Obviously, the gaming industry has been fighting that for some time. We are now seeing other communities, another community that has also been part of this push tax doing it, so we're going to be starting to do it as well. But we're not ready right now.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions? Public comment, we still open. You gonna?
I have it
Okay.
right here. If
Go
you're ready
ahead.
for public comment?
I thought we already opened it up, but go ahead. Go ahead.
I have Margaret Carrasco. Mr. Ray Ray.
Not so much of a question, but more so of a statement, right? Because, as I watch government, right, okay, I hear you, Mayor, up here, no question the administration have done a good job, right? But a lot of the things that has done, came in, we know the government is slow. We know that. So a lot of money for the roads was applied for last administration, and it was being done, and we had just got it. I think when we put that type of information out there, we got to be, fair with that, right? And so I heard the gentleman talk about, according to the census, maybe 90,000 people. Sometimes I just ask myself, like, is any of us thinking? Is we just going based off that census? Because I look around the community, we got about 5,000 homeless people, and I'm being nice with that. And so I hear how we bring the people up here about the gaming taxes, the alcohol. When is y'all gonna do something about these damn landlords? Is they not exempt? Because as I ride around, they're price gouging. You looking at how some of the properties look, I wouldn't even put my dog up in there, and I'm scared of dogs. It's disgusting. That's what makes the city look the way that it does. And so I say to you aldermen, when we're putting these ordinances in, when y'all want to be so business friendly and just allow business to do whatever they want to do, this is what makes the city look like. Because we're not making them cut grass, we're not making them trim nothing in front of the houses. You're looking at some of the alleys, you're looking at how some of them stack stuff in front of their houses. And so I also hear how we're stepping away from working with the county as it relates to 911, the calling center. That's part of the problem now. We're not building relationship friendly, nowhere. We have to start figuring out how to work together. It just really makes no sense to me. It's the same thing with the school district. The first thing someone looks at in a city before they move there is how the schools look. We still ain't got no wraparound center, Mayor. To every last one of y'all that voted for it, it still's not open. Nothing has been done. They came up here 9 different times, told y'all 9 different things. And not one thing that they told y'all have been done. So although I love what the administration has done as it relates to the money, but I have to say this, and I'm going to sit on down. The public still ain't feeling it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Margaret Carrasco?
Yes, good evening. I have here a copy out here in the front lobby, the only paperwork that's out there, and it's with regard to the public hearing regarding the budget appropriation ordinance and revenue certification for the fiscal year May 1st, 2024 to April 30th, 2025. It's all in English. Nothing was in Spanish. In addition to that, the posting and all the promotion on it was only in English. Your community is 90% speaks Spanish. So I think we have a problem right there, just for a second. The second thing is that lawyers' fees, okay? Is there any kind of cap? Because the amount that we're spending and hiring more and more and more lawyers, because we kept getting so many lawsuits, well, what is it? Is there kind of an end to it, a stop, okay? When we talk about risk management, I think that if you analyze a lot of those lawsuits, a good part of them is a result related to the staff of the mayor and her people. So maybe they're the problem, okay? Next, I noticed that according to employees in the city, that George Bridges, chief of staff, is acting as human resources. We have no person there. So is he also getting the salary for that person? And what's going to happen next year? And the last thing is that I noticed in the budget there was this new cushy position. Tons of money, just like George's. Why are we getting another person to do the mayor's job? So if we're going to give this person $100,000, then we need to reduce the mayor's salary because they're doing her job. There'll be George doing her job, and now this new person doing her job. So what is she doing? I have a lot of other things, but that's okay. I'll get them for next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Clyde, did you want to say something?
I sat here and listened to that, and the budget is going to balance out, right? But I heard a gentleman say that the last administration could not balance the budget, you know? And the reason why we got balance was because of the grants that came in through the COVID and stuff like that. They came from federal money. I know that money is not coming back again, okay? But that's one thing I can't understand. I go in every one of these little gambling establishments and gas stations, and it's push tax. When people lose their money and they had that change left on their ticket, they got a bucket there. And so I asked the man, where that money go to? They said the money come to the city. Where come to the city? Where did the money go? I mean, somebody's beating somebody on that money, because they got these little buckets in everything. They even got it at the casino. And some people even dropping their cash money in there. You know, I seen that at the casino where they dropping it. I said, well, where's this money going? And they said the money coming to the city. Now, I sat here doing your little hour presentation, and I saw push tax up there, but is that the money that come from the gambling? That's the question. I need to know. Is that the money that y'all picking up when the people go collect the money out the machines and they pick up that little money with all the, people got change, they leave their ticket, and is that it? That's the question. I got to go with Margaret. We voted against a city administrator. The people voted for it. Ain't no we. The people voted for it. Y'all brought it to the community, and it lost the vote, okay? Mayor, you're still trying to do your thing by bringing in these other people in with this money like it's yours. This is not the casino. This ain't where y'all just give up money and giving the people a position. We said we don't want no city administrator, so what you gonna do, put administrator on every department now? And everybody report to George. Come on now, for real. Let's be real. I mean, let's keep the balance. I like the way you presented that. I might have looked like, but I know what it was at the last budget meeting. I was here then, and I see it's the same thing. If you keep it like that, make it more, go up a little bit. Stop hiring all these people. Thank you.
Thank you. Randy, did you want to say anything? Anyone else for public comment? Mr. Frank, go right ahead.
Hello, everybody. I didn't plan on speaking, but I just wanted to say, it's a lot of money going into public safety, amongst other things. I think that those things should be funded, but we also have an obligation to make sure that those people are also serving the people and treating them fairly and abiding by the same laws that they're enforcing. You know what I mean? So I just want to put that in the air in light of some of the things that have been in the news about, little kids getting pulled out of school and falsely interrogated. So just put that on your radar. That's it. Thank you.
Chair Newsom, that completes the audience time.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. And can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Alderman Hayes, second.
Second.
Second by Alderman Guzman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. We're adjourned. 7:20.